so much for gathering here today. It's a wonderful sight to see. For any of you who don't know me yet, my name is Eliza Michaels. I go to Beverly High School, and I'm going to be a sophomore there, so yeah. I know, I see lots of Beverly High School people out there. Thank you for coming. So I wanted to do this because I wanted to show that Beverly is not a place where we tolerate hate. When I heard about the Charlottesville attack, my first thoughts were, how? How could there be actual Nazis walking the street? How could these white supremacists who you see lurking online be real? It didn't even cross my mind that these people were real and that they were out there, and it broke my heart when I found out they were. How could someone take this woman's life just for standing up for what was right? It's disgusting and awful. So that's why we're gathered here today, to show that we don't tolerate that. Thank you. That's not what we're about here in Beverly. We're about love and supporting each other in this wonderful community we have. So thank you so much for coming out. Since I kept seeing these horrific tragedies happening, I kept asking myself, what could I do? I have been going to marches. I was at the Women's March, at Earth Day March, and I kept donating to good causes, a little bit here and there, but that just simply wasn't enough for me. And then after the most recent tragedies, I thought about going into Boston, and firstly, I didn't want the violence there, and secondly, it didn't seem right to give these people my time and my attention. So that's why I decided to be here today instead, because you're a great community. You are worth my time. You are worth my attention. And I couldn't think of a better way to spend today than showing my community and showing everybody here that we build each other up, and that's Beverly is a wonderful place where we do not tolerate hate, we do not tolerate racism, we do not tolerate anti-Semitism. It's just not what we're about. So thank you so much for being here today and showing that violence and hate is not what helps, but love is. Love is what builds us up. Love is what makes us strong. And that's what we're here about in Beverly. And this is a more important time than ever to show that. So thank you so much for everyone being here to do so. Before I turn it over to Estelle Rand of Ward 2, there's a couple people I want to thank. Firstly, Julie Flowers and everyone from First Baptist Church. Thank you so much. We couldn't have done it without you. That's the reason I'm standing up here with this lovely PA system. We really appreciate it. Thank you, Julie. Some elected officials who are here today, of course, Mayor Cahill, thank you for coming out. Yeah, and then I think we had some city councilors. I know I met someone from Ward 1, and then we have Estelle from Ward 2, and Jim Latter from Ward 3. Are you here? If you are, give a wave. Thank you. Almost done with the shout-outs. And then to one of my best friends, Rory Devlin. I know he's not here, but he's wonderful, and he has helped me so much with all my local activism. I could not have done it without him. And of course to my family, my grandparents who are here all the way from Buffalo, New York. And my cousins too, who surprised me. Hi, Emma and Katie. And then to everyone who donated their time, their energy, their markers, their crayons, their stickers. Thank you so much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Estelle, who has a few words to say.
Hi, everybody. I just thank you, Eliza, and I wanted to take a minute to recognize Councilor Silva. Jason Silva is here, as well as Councilor at Large Matt St. Hilaire. So I think that was everybody for elected officials. Thanks. Okay, so can everybody hear me? Move closer if you can't. Don't be afraid. Come on up. We're here together. So welcome and good afternoon. Thank you to Eliza Michaels for organizing today's Rally for Love. She is an impressive young leader in our community, and I don't even have to say young in front of that, except that makes her all the more impressive. So I'm honored to work with her and honored to be here today because of her, because of you. Thank you to all of you for being here. Thank you to Mayor Cahill for being here to speak in support of love as well. I'm especially appreciative for the opportunity to talk with you about love in my role as the Ward 2 City Councilor. As you can imagine, love is not a topic that we address every day at City Hall. Beverly is a community that loves her citizens unconditionally. How do we show this unconditional love for our citizens? We show that love by building and supporting our local economy. We show that love by valuing our unique history and culture. We show that love by electing empathetic leaders who listen. We show that love by prioritizing affordable housing. Our community shows love for her citizens through generous nonprofits and the people who support them, through community leaders who help people who are the most vulnerable. We show our love by looking for better solutions to homelessness, domestic violence, hunger, and substance abuse. We show that love by making way for young community leaders like Eliza Michaels. Our community has love for all of her citizens, regardless of race, religion, gender, sexual preference, immigration status, housing status, veteran status, or income level. That's what I mean by unconditional love, and that's why I am here today. For the third time in 3 years, I have been warned that I am broaching a national or bipartisan issue, and that as a nonpartisan municipal elected official, that can be divisive. And so for the third time, I am embracing the opportunity to speak out. To help push for change and share with you that racism is not a problem of the federal government's. Racism is not a Republican or Democratic issue. Racism, much like human rights, is a community issue. Charlottesville, Virginia is a city with a mayor and a city council and a population of 46,597. That's about 5,000 more people than we have here in Beverly. Racism is a community issue, and so is love. Thank you. Let's not be indifferent to what happened in Charlottesville. Let's be a community that moves forward with a conscious mind, actively supporting love despite the ignorance and hate that we know exists. Mahatma Gandhi said that love is the strongest force the world possesses, and yet it is the humblest imaginable. Let's be humble and use this force. We all have and share the responsibility to cultivate love for each other within the community. No one else can do that for us. We have to build a love within our community that's so clear and so strong that there is no space for hate speech and violence, and no space for discrimination of any kind. I know that we can do this together. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here today. And now let's give a loud Beverly cheer if you're committed to supporting Beverly on her path of love and conclusion. Thank you. Awesome. Woo. Thank you all for being here, and please, you're tasked with this responsibility. We're here together, and you're all here because you believe in love and the power of this community to be peaceful and inclusive. So I hope that we can carry that on to our neighbors and our friends and our children and anyone we meet throughout the day. I'd like to introduce Mayor Mike Cahill. He's going to come up and speak, and I'm really thankful to have a leader in our community. The highest position in our community has chosen to stand up for love today. So thank you.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here. Just a couple things. Eliza, where are you now? Give a wave. There you are. Just so you know, Eliza has already stood up in this community. She was very vocal and instrumental back in the late winter in the conversation around Sanctuary School District in Beverly. She was very, very brave and persuasive when she spoke. She also is going to be the Beverly High School representative to the Beverly School Committee for this coming year. So thank you for stepping up in so many ways, Eliza. And Councilor Rand Estelle Rand, thank you. Your words are inspirational, as they always are. I also want to recognize we have several city councilors with us here today. Councilor Dave Lang from Ward 1, Councilor Rand, who you just heard, Councilor Jim Latter from Ward 3, Councilor Scott Hausman from Ward 4, Councilor John Frades from Ward 6. We have city councilors at large, Matt St. Hilaire and Jason Silva. And I don't want to miss anybody, be you a councilor or a school committee member. So if I've missed you, give a wave, make sure we recognize you, and thank you for taking time out of your Saturday as well. Thank you. I also want to thank Police Chief John LaLasher and members of the Beverly Police Department for being here today and supporting us. You know, we're all here because we get it, we know, we understand. Love is the only way to live life. And, you know, if you live with love and by love, it means you're open and you're accepting and you're caring and you're giving and you don't judge and you recognize and you acknowledge that we all are living this life on this earth together and we're all finding our way. And that the one thing that you're supposed to do if you care about people and if you live love is to do just that. Never judge and always try to help. Always be there for people. And I know that that's the value that we share, and that's the value that really kind of drives this community. And by the way, it's the value that drives this country, as we all understand. With that said, we also know that hate is real. Hate is out there. It's real. We can't stand silent. We can't sit by. We have to stand up and we have to call it out. And that's why we're all here today. So thank you. The white supremacists, the neo-Nazis, anybody, whatever they call themselves, the people that came out in Charlottesville last week, the people that have done so much damage to so many people in this world over years, their values are not the values of America, and they're not the values that we hold. So, what do we do about it? We're doing what we can today. We have friends and neighbors and people we've never met who are in Boston, 20,000 plus strong, marching in counter-protest to hate. Marching because they believe love is the way. So what do? We need to always call out hate, and when a crime is committed in the name of hate, when hate spills over into evil acts, then those crimes need to be prosecuted. And sadly, that's exactly what needs to happen in Charlottesville, because what started as hate being spewed out of people's mouths became violence that took lives and injured people and hurt people. So we always need to prosecute hate crimes. Second, we need to engage, and we need to discuss, and we need to talk. I made this point the other night at the vigil, and I also want to thank Jenna Beers, and I don't know if Jenna's here, but Jenna Beers is the woman who organized the vigil last Sunday night that I know many of you attended here. right in the wake of the tragedy in Charlottesville. So thank you, Jenna. But I made this point the other night. Not everyone who shows up at a hate rally, not everyone who starts to follow the ways of hate is truly in their heart filled with hate. They may be lost, they may be struggling. We need to talk with those people, engage them, and try to turn them, because love is strong, and love can turn hate into love. So it's always worth that effort. We always need to try to talk and engage. And then, and this is one that I'm not sure I effectively conveyed the other night, but we need to educate. I think one of the greatest challenges and perhaps one of the greatest failings in American education for a long time has been that we don't effectively teach kids to really learn. We need to do a better job to teach kids to ask, to question, to dig, to research, because not all that's presented to them or us, not all that's put in front of us is real, is accurate, is fair. So we need to teach people about agendas. We need to teach people to look for methodologies and look for science. Look for something to back up an argument. We need to teach people to consider the source of information they're being presented, whether they're television networks or print and online media or studies. We need to look at who's funding, who owns that network, who owns that newspaper, whose agenda is driving all of that news. We need to dig into all of that. We need to understand when a study is presented and held up as a rationale to make a policy decision, was that a study downplaying the effects of secondhand smoke that was funded by the tobacco industry? Right? Think about that. We need to help ourselves understand and certainly teach our kids to dig in and challenge. Always challenge and always try to find out. Once you have an understanding of the news sources that are coming at you, you have a better sense of how much weight to accord a certain point of view. Because it can be really hard to find a truly objective point of view. And we are bombarded on all sides with more news than we've ever had before in this day and age. So it is so critical and so important that we help to make sure that people, all people, and certainly in our schools it's our challenge, to make sure that our kids learn how to dig in and how to find what's real in what's out there being presented as fact. And the reason I'm talking about this is the other thing that we can and should do here is we need to get more involved politically. A lot of people aren't comfortable with being political, right? But we need to. Now, the fact is that there's been lots coming out of Washington for several years now that does not reflect the values of America. There's been a lot that doesn't reflect your values and mine. And since January, it's been even worse, and we know that. But I'll say this. Last weekend was horrible in Charlottesville, but the response since has been encouraging. And I'd like to think that as a country, we've bottomed out, and we're starting to come back, because people are getting it now. I think the hate that was on display last weekend, I think really jolted a lot of Americans. And I hope that that feeling I've got is real, because we need to be engaged and we need to be vigilant and we need to be active, because our values are what's really under attack when that kind of hate is on display and gets any foothold. So there's been a lot coming out of DC that really doesn't reflect our values. And when I say politically, forget about parties. Just look and see who's representing our values. And when I say to get involved politically, whether it be here locally, whether it be congressionally, Senate, whether it be within Massachusetts, and I'm going to make a plug for us getting involved outside of Massachusetts. There are a lot of seats up for grabs next November in the congressional midterms, the U.S. Senate and U.S. House. And we've seen again and again that they are not reflecting our values and how they act. Now, Congressman Moulton has recently gotten very active in getting behind endorsing and trying to help challengers in some of those congressional races in key seats in other states. So if you have an interest in perhaps getting involved, I'd suggest you just go look on his website. I think he's got 11 people who he's endorsed. I think most of them are most of them are veterans. Most of them served in active duty, either along with him or during the same time frame. So wherever you may look, if you think that you can do more and you need to do more, that's a thought. It's a thought to get involved politically, to try to make sure that Congress looks more like you and me in the years going forward. So standing up to hate and never being silent, engaging, discussing, talking, trying to change people's minds if they are not driven by love, educating, being involved and active, including politically, I hope at least that's something to take with you. I'd like to read, to finish off, a joint proclamation that the Beverly City Council and I are signing. The language is not ours. I don't want to claim authorship. This is essentially the language that the governor and the state legislature just embraced and adopted as a resolution. And we're putting this forward. I called the governor's office, said, can we use the language? And they said, absolutely. So I'm going to read this, and this is something that our city councilors and I, on behalf of you, as your elected representatives, are proclaiming that in the city of Beverly, Massachusetts, whereas white nationalist organizations in our country have consistently promoted values that are overtly racist, anti-Semitic, and anti-immigrant, and these poisonous ideologies continue to promote hatred, bigotry, and violence, specifically against individuals solely on the basis of their race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, and immigrant status. And whereas today, white nationalism and neo-Nazism remain very real threats to the values for which our community stands, and their reinvention as the alt-right should not mitigate their hateful ideologies. And whereas, while free speech is a bedrock value for the citizens in our city, our commonwealth, and our country, white nationalist and neo-Nazi groups promote a message that is the antithesis of Beverly's dedication to civil rights for all and is an irreconcilable conflict with our foundational principles of liberty and justice for all. And whereas white nationalism and neo-Nazism are continuing to grow as menaces to societal order, as they seek to reignite social animosities, reverse improvements in race relations, divide the nation, and foment hatred, classism, and ethnic eradication. And whereas the white nationalist and neo-Nazi message of racial and social intolerance has led to senseless acts of violence that continue to terrorize members of ethnic and religious communities, be it proclaimed that the totalitarian impulses, violence, xenophobic biases, and bigoted ideologies that are promoted by white nationalists and neo-Nazis are strongly denounced and opposed, and further, that law enforcement agencies and elected officials at every level of government are urged to condemn white nationalist and neo-Nazi ideology, vigorously pursue justice in response to hate-fueled violence, and work to ensure the protection of the marginalized and targeted communities. And further, that copies of this proclamation will be transmitted to the mayor of Charlottesville, the governor of Virginia, and the president of the United States. So again, thank you all so very much. Thank you, especially Eliza. Estelle, are you coming back up? No. Where's Eliza? Eliza, who's next to the microphone? Come on up.